Hi guys, you're welcome back to my YouTube channel, and it's another Tuesday for our book reviews. Who is excited? I'm sure you're super duper excited. Yes. So how did the last chapter go? I'm so sure you learned a lot last week, and this week we're doing something different. The chapter 3 is talking about guess. I know you know already. So chapter 3 is talking about learning your patterns. Chapter 3 says learn your patterns, and trust me, there's so much to start us from this chapter, and I really learned a lot. I've read this book before, but reading it again, I'm seeing it from a total different perspective, and this is your cue to always go back to the books you've read before. Just glance through them. I'm pretty sure you're going to pick something that you've not picked before. And there's so much to learn from today's chapter 3, which has 8 subheadings, 8 beautiful subheadings for you to learn from. And yes, on Sunday was my birthday, and I really enjoyed my day. You would get a vlog on my YouTube channel by 5 p.m. on Friday about how I spent my birthday, and trust me, it's so something you want to watch. Yes, so guys, let's get back into business. But before we get back into business, I'm putting on one of my gifts. Yeah, so I got this earrings and my bracelet from 1003 collections. If you want to get yours, it is super affordable and you would want to get it because I'm not looking beautiful. Of course I am looking beautiful. I really love this. I got it as a gift for my birthday. So you would want to patronize 1003 collections, guys. Let's get right into today's business. Learn your patterns, chapter 3 of our Do Not Settle for Save by Pastor Sarah Jakes. I really want to always learn from Pastor Sarah Jakes. I always want to listen to her messages. I always want to read the books because there's so much to suffer from every knowledge she's dishing out. Trust me, that woman is a lot, and I really do love her. Yes, let's get right into business. Learn your patterns with 8 beautiful subheadings. Let's get right into it. Chapter 1 says what happened was. What happened was. Now she started off by saying that most times when someone says to you what happened was, you already know that you are in for a long-term conversation. So she just started to tell us about this same teenage pregnancy. I'm pretty sure she must have gone through a lot with this teenage pregnancy. So she was telling us about how she went through hell for a teenage pregnancy and how she always tried to cover it up and wanted to please people, trying to make sure that she fell into the good books of people, and that is what happened to her. So one thing I really highlighted from this subheading was when she said faking joy in the face of misery or peace when you have human turmoil is dangerous. So most times, so many persons are going through a lot of things, are fighting a lot of inner battles, and they still try to put up so many smiley faces. Trust me, all the faces you are seeing out there, then behind every happy face is someone that is really fighting a lot in there. Behind every happy face is someone in there fighting a lot of things. But what are you really fighting? What are you really fighting? What are you covering up? What are you hiding from people? What reality about you are you hiding from people? Are you trying to please people? So another thing I highlighted from this subheading was when she said there could be countless scenarios that must have created your pattern, but you must be willing to search for the patterns that have developed in your life that reflect the current state of your soul. She also says that many of us give our power away by living in a version of our stories that only leaves room for us to be victims. So most times some things happen to us. Yes, life happens to everybody. Life happens to everybody, for real. Life happens to everybody, and when life happens to you, you want to just giving yourself to the stories of the past that allows you to be victim, that allows you to fall victim. Everybody wants to be the people that always love to be like among the pity party. They always try to paint themselves out as a victim. So those things are the things that happened to her. So that is what happened, and now this will lead us to the next subheading that says no longer a victim. You know, we're trying to learn our patterns, so we need to know what happened. So she's telling us what happened to her. Now I'm also asking you, what happened to you? And after you've known what happened to you and you have reflected, the next thing you have to do is no longer a victim. In case you were a victim, in case you were painting yourself as a victim. Now the next subheading says no longer a victim, and this is where she said you should stop. You should stop painting yourself as a victim. Things happen, life happens, but you have to move on. And the only way you can move on is when you do a self-introspection. Reflect, think, what happened? You already know what happened, and how did it happen? Why were you always painting yourself as the victim? And this would also lead me to the third subheading that says hindsight. Hindsight is 20/20. Hindsight is 20/20. When I saw this, I knew what she was talking about. Yes, guys, and by the way, I'm sorry about the background noise. We're doing something in my compound and really making a lot of noise. I'm so sorry about that. So I'm so sorry about that. Let's just focus on what we're yet to do. So hindsight is 20/20, guys. You see, I don't know if I'm the only one. I'm pretty sure there are so many people out there like me. If I'm late, maybe I'm going out and I'm late, I hate to check the time. I'm so scared. Like, hey, if I check the time out, because once I'm under pressure, I begin to get nervous, then I would want to use the toilet. So I hate to check time when I'm late. But now, Pastor Sarah just telling us that hindsight is 20/20. What she was trying to say majorly is that we should always look back in hindsight. What really happened? How did it happen? Because the main reason why people don't want to look back in hindsight is because they are so scared to face their shame. They are so scared to confront their past. You have to confront it because you have to know where the problem is for you to move on. Fine, we used to say that you should move on from your past. But how do you move on when you don't even know where you're moving on from? Okay, you are going to Yanapaja and you are at Egbeda, and you don't want to accept the fact that you're at Egbeda. How will you know where to start from? So you have to know where you're going to. You have to know what really happened to you, so you can know where to tackle the matter from. Yeah, so you can know how to do it. So you can know how to go about the whole thing. So you have to look back in hindsight, reflect, retrospect. So one thing I really highlighted from this subheading is when she says the problem with avoiding the lessons of our past is that we are bound to repeat them in the future. So most times, if you do not look back in hindsight, you tend to repeat that same mistake. So when I was in school, I had a 0 in a particular course in chemistry. Showed me shaggy when I was in school. So I had a 0 in a particular course, and I hated to, like, I disliked that part of only looking at my profile. I didn't like it. I didn't like to look at my profile because I was not even happy with it. But how was I going to move on and know where to tackle and know where to improve in my academic life if I did not take the pain of opening that profile I don't want to open and know where the problem is from? So you have to look back in hindsight. You have to know where the problem is really from, so you can know how to move on. And another thing I wrote down here was an unexamined past will always threaten to contaminate the potential of your present. So you did not examine your past, you just want to move on like that. When you get into your present, the things that you've not tackled will now come into your present and contaminate your beautiful present. So you have to look back in hindsight so you can know where to move on. So you can know how and when to move on. You get it, guys? I'm sure you're following. If we do not respect our vulnerability, we cannot teach others to do the same. So the reason most persons don't want to look back in hindsight is because it opens up that part of them that is vulnerable to themselves. We always say that, okay, we should be vulnerable. We want people that are vulnerable with us. We want to be vulnerable with people. But are you vulnerable with yourself? But I've done a video on vulnerability on my channel before. So if you've not watched that video, please go back and watch that video. There's a lot to learn from that video. Most persons do not want to look back in hindsight because they don't really want to be vulnerable with themselves, and they cannot even trust themselves to be vulnerable with themselves, because when they look back in hindsight and they sense and they smell that vulnerability, they are harsh on themselves. So most times people do not want to face their past and confront their past. They don't want to peep into the past and see what happened and how it happened, because they are not even sure if they can be vulnerable with themselves. So if you cannot be vulnerable with yourself and trust your vulnerability with yourself, how do you want others to do the same thing to you? That's a question to actually brood on. So this will lead us to the next chapter, which is moments that triggers shame, pain, and embarrassment. So yeah, what she said majorly that really stood out for me was when she said that illusions are confronted by reality. If you like, no matter how you want take handle the matter and squeeze and just like sweet talk yourself into what is not true, it will still be confronted by reality. And she told a story of how her sister casted her sister Cora. Why did you do that to my woman? Her sister casted her. So she was a teenage mother. We all know that already. Yeah. So they were in school that day and nobody knew that she was a teenage mom. Nobody knew about her life. She came to school to study. So they were in the they were having lunch that day, and she and her sister and her sister friends were talking about, they got into a heated argument about teenage moms, that all of the teenage moms are hoes. That why did you even get pregnant in the first place? So her sister was really on the edge and she was really fighting it. Then she, on the other hand, was like, God, she said she was just somewhere praying to God that God should just make her secretly evaporate. You know what I'm saying? You know, she was already on a hot seat. Something that she did, like she did not want people to know about her. Her sister was already having that argument with her friends. And knowing the type of sister she had, she knew that she would not give in to the argument. So she knew that our sister was going to say these things sooner or later. She was really, 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 really scared. And before she knew what was happening, her sister just blurted out and said, my sister is a teenage mom and she's not a hoe. She said she was really, really scared. But then at the end of the day, it did not change anything, because it did not change the way it didn't change the way people were looking at her. It didn't change anything. But she was the one that could not handle her truth, because nobody really cares after all. Like most things that we think that people really care about, nobody really cares about it. So you're the one that needs to fix yourself, and you're the one that needs to handle your truth, so others can really help you to handle it. You get it? So she said she was thinking, okay, because that happened, because people did not really change the perspective in which they saw her, she was thinking she was going to change and stop hiding her truth. But it did not change anything. It went on with her like that, and it created a pattern. What was the pattern? She was always wearing a facade. Now, this will lead us to the next chapter. This will lead us to the next subheading, which is, what are your patterns? What are your patterns? Sarah Jakes already knows her patterns, that she was wearing a facade. She didn't want people to know the truth about her. So what are your own patterns? Now I'm going to read out some things that I highlighted in this subheading. The first one is, she really talked about teenagers here, and I will just brief it. He said the problem with teenage years is that our observations are valid, but our perspective is very limited. Because I remember I had a lot of issues as a teenager. In fact, like at times I used to sit and wonder how I breezed through my teenage years. Because I always loved to spend a lot of time alone, and I was an overthinker. I used to observe so many things, and I was really, really stubborn teenager. I used to observe so many things, but now I really understand better, and that is why you would always say that, okay, now I know better. Because when you were a teenager, the way you viewed some things is not the same way you are viewing it now. The lens you use in viewing some things back then is not the same lens you are using viewing it now. So she said, as a teenager, most teenagers, your observations are really, really right. They're right, but your perspective is very, very limited. So as you begin to grow, you get to learn more and you know more, and when you know more, you do better. You do more and you do better. When you know better, you do better. So she said it is until we are older that we begin to tap into the compassion necessary to learn from those observations. One thing I also wrote down here is when she said the holes in your life can only be filled with the knowledge of God. So she also like really talked about her teenage pregnancy and the things she did, how she was trying to still cover up and just try to please people. She really wanted to please people. She wanted to fall into the good books of people. So one thing I've been learning from this particular book that keeps on reoccurring is pleasing people. Do not please people. Your past is your past. It has happened. And confront your past. Confront your past and know your patterns. So she said, the holes in your life can only be filled with the knowledge of God. And this knowledge of God she's talking about is not just accepting that He is real. It's about you coming to terms with you telling God everything and knowing that He can be there for you in the darkest moments. That is what it means to have the knowledge of God. Because you can have the knowledge of God and know that, okay, Christ and God is real and everything about Him is real. But in your darkest moment, do you really talk to Him? Do you really tell Him how you feel about the most minute things that are making you so uncomfortable? Because most times it is those minute things those minute things that really affects us and really turns out to be something so big that they end up creating patterns. So this will lead us to the next subheading, which is good patterns. Good patterns. So she says that when your mood shifts, find out the reason why it did. When your mood shifts, this is a good pattern now. When your mood shifts, find out the reason why it did. Do not just let it slip off your mind like that. Most persons deal with mood swing. Why are you having so much mood swing at a time? Why? It's not normal. It's not normal. So when you are happy and something steals away your joy, find out why. Why am I feeling the way I'm feeling? Those little things. Find out, why am I feeling the way I am feeling? And this will lead us to the next subheading, which is prayer's power. Prayer's power. What she majorly said here was the ability to always pray. And prayer is communication. Prayer is communication. So you can go to your place of prayer and tell God how exactly you are feeling. Do not hide anything from Him. In my last video, I talked about how I was down and I fell into the imposter syndrome. I told God exactly how I was feeling. I told Him how I was insecure, how I was not like, how I was feeling like I did not deserve everything I have achieved, and how I was still feeling like I've not achieved so many things. Those little things. Tell Him everything. He knows already, but He wants you to be vulnerable. If you cannot feel comfortable telling God about certain things, how do you want Him to help you? Or do you go to the hospital and just sit and watch the doctor? No, you tell Him what is wrong with you. You cannot hide anything from a doctor. So the same thing, do not hide anything from God. Tell Him everything and anything. He's ready to listen and He's ready to help you. So this leads us to the last subheading for today's chapter, which is mercy in reflection. So what she's saying majorly is for you to reflect and help yourself to have mercy on yourself. The moments you reflect on your past, can you view your past from a perspective of love and compassion and empathy? Because most times we say that, okay, I told Shade, I told Bola, I told Femi about what happened to me, and they started to judge me. Are you sure the moment you look back in hindsight, you would not also judge yourself? Are you sure? Do you even have mercy on yourself enough for God to even have mercy on you? Most persons do not have mercy on themselves. So reflect. And after you reflect, and she gave a story of One Mercy's Foundation for for girls who have gone through trauma and every bad thing in life, and now they will tell them and fill up before they think about how bad they are about themselves. They fill them with the knowledge of God, of how God loves them, and of how God is ready to forgive them of everything that they've done. So mercy will speak for you, and God really loves you enough, and He's ready to have mercy on you. But do you have mercy on yourself first? Every time you're looking back in hindsight, always look back in hindsight with compassion and with love. That is everything for today's chapter. See you next week Tuesday for chapter 4 of Do Not Settle for Save by Pastor Surajit. I'm pretty sure you've been enjoying the book review so far, so good. I remain Dohu Fifame Prosperous, aka Prospi. This is Inside Out with Prospi. On Tuesdays we do our book reviews, on Fridays we do our vlogs and normal content, and this Friday something juicy will come out on my YouTube channel about how I spent my day, because on Sunday was my birthday. So expect the vlog on Friday by 5 p.m. See you there. I really do love you. Do not forget to subscribe, like and share. I remain Dohu Fifame Prosperous. This is Inside Out with Prospi, and that's on period. Bye guys.